Prepare to be captivated by the business story of the week, hosted by me, Shaheen Shan. Join us on a journey through the twists and turns of entrepreneurial triumphs and setbacks. Immerse yourself in the narrative and witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. This is Business Story of the Week.
Welcome once again to Business Story of the Week, where we bring you the best and the most interesting when it comes to the business world, entrepreneurs, executives. You know how it is. We bring you the success stories that you love to hear to complement your journey when it comes to the business world. Today is no different. Today we've got a special guest for you. We've got a man, an orange man himself, who is going to be telling us a very interesting side of that uh, orange color. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about him. Chester Elton is renowned as the apostle of appreciation, and he is a leading figure in building exceptional workplace cultures, and he has dedicated over two decades to guiding organizations in aligning employee engagement with their strategic goals, right? His works are praised as fascinating and refreshing by Fortune magazine. It extends to his role as co-author of several New York Times and number one bestsellers, including All In, The Carrot Principle. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Leading with Gratitude and Anxiety at Works. These books have been translated into 30 languages and have sold collectively 1.5 million copies all over the world. He's a founding partner of Culture Works, The Culture Works, and a sought after leadership consultant and executive coach. Elton has impacted firms like American Express, the World Bank, and he is recognized by the global gurus as a top 10 leader in organizational culture and leadership in 2023. He is also a committed member of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches Pay It Forward project and serves on the board of the Camp Corral, supporting children of military heroes. Chester Elton's expertise and passion for transformative leadership and culture makes him a figure in this realm of organizational excellence. But, you know, we're here to talk about the man himself. He's going to share us today his stories. Chester, how are you doing? How is your day? And welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate that very much. Delighted to be with you, to spend some time with you. Always a pleasure.
That's fantastic. And you seem like you're down for any kind of conversation. So we're just gonna get into this, right? Chester, I'm always, I'm a young buck, I don't have that much experience, and I'm always looking up to people who has big extensive experience in whatever niche they are in. And you've spent over 20 years digging into company culture, teamwork, employee engagement. You even wrote all these books telling you about that. Um, Give me the down low. What are your biggest takeaways in this past 10 years? Your biggest takeaways you've found when it comes to energizing and making engaged and productive and making a really strong team culture, And from everything that you've gone through, what would you say are the need to know for leaders who want to build an awesome culture?
Yeah, no, great question. It's really interesting. Adrian Gossick's my co-author, and as you mentioned, for over 20 years now, we've been studying workplace culture and leadership and teams and so on. We have a database of over 1 million engagement surveys, countless interviews that we've done for our books and case studies and so on. What's fascinating, Joshua, is in every one of those exceptional cultures, exceptional leaders, and exceptional teams, is this common thread of gratitude. Isn't that interesting? And it's a leadership attribute that a lot of people think of as a soft skill, a nice to have, not a must have.
Right, right.
It's so interesting that as you really take a deep dive on the data and you take a deep dive on productivity and so on, innovation, all the key indicators of great cultures, that is always there. And it's not a soft skill. It's very much a power skill. So a couple of key takeaways is that people are always going to be important, right? We have all kinds of
Right.
advances in technology and so
Right.
on, and those are all great in enhancing
Right.
productivity and so on, information flow. It still comes back down to how do you lead people? And one of the
Right.
key ways that you lead people in these great cultures and teams is you find ways to engage, enable, and energize them, right?
Engage.
Engage them around your mission and vision, right? Enable them
Right.
with the training and the tools to deliver on that promise. And then that
Right.
energizing, not so much what we do and how we do it, why do we do it? Do my values
Right.
align with yours? When you've got that energizing component along with enablement and engagement, that's when really good things happen because you've got that passion. My father always
Fantastic.
said, look, there's no substitute for enthusiasm. And it's very
There
much
is.
true. When you love what you're doing and you think it's going to make a difference and you can connect the dots to what you do every day to making that vision and mission come true, that's where the magic happens. Now, the best way to energize your people is to
Okay.
make sure their voices are heard, that their opinions matter,
Right.
and when they produce and deliver, you celebrate. We talk about a carrot culture, right? A culture
Right.
with more carrots and less sticks, right? And when people feel valued and appreciated, again, energy levels go up, commitment goes up,
Right.
productivity
Right.
goes up. Does that all make sense?
Absolutely, Chester. I love how you said that gratitude, enthusiasm. Are those two things that always go hand in hand in your experience? Or is it just one? You have to be gratitude to have enthusiasm. Is it always a hand in hand thing?
A great quote from the wonderful Brene Brown, who's done a lot of writing on emotions and so on,
Hmm.
said, it's not the joy that makes us grateful. It's gratitude that makes us joyful. So
Oh,
gratitude really does come first. And you've seen this. I've seen quite an evolution in leadership over the last couple of decades. When
right.
I first came into the workforce, it was very much command and control. We didn't
Uh-huh.
question why. Ours was to do and die. Right. This very
Right.
simple formula. And then it became more collaborative. Right. It was more of
Uh-huh.
a team atmosphere. And then, of course, you brought in diversity and so on, and you wanted different
Right.
opinions, and all very healthy in this roadmap. Right now, what we're seeing is the very best leaders are the best teachers. Right, they're mentors, they're
Mm,
coaches. You
right.
think of who had the biggest impact in your life over and above your immediate family, maybe your father, mother, or
Uh-huh.
grandparents, whoever
Uh-huh.
raised you. You always come back to there was that teacher that believed in me.
Right.
There was that coach
Hmm.
that cheered me on. There was a mentor that walked me through, the do's and don'ts of really a life worth living. And so what we're finding is now the best leaders really are coaches. And we talk very much about a coaching culture. Well, you think
Right.
about your coaches, your teachers, your mentors. They were
Right.
always very demanding, right? They pushed
Yeah.
you to be better. At the
Uh-huh.
same time, they were your biggest cheerleaders. They were the
That
ones that
is
made
true.
sure that, you can do this. You've done hard things, push through. I'm cheering for you. I've got your back. I will tell you, in the executive coaching that I've been doing lately in particular, I had one
Uh-huh.
executive I was coaching, and we went through this whole thing, and I'd send in these little notes. And so when he said, it makes such a difference to know that you're cheering for me. And I thought,
Wow.
of course, that's what coaches do, right?
Wow.
So that's I think an insight and an evolution. The other thing, Joshua, is we often think about what will our legacy be? How
Right.
will we
Right.
be remembered? Right.
Uh-huh.
And this idea, if you want to be remembered, teach. We remember our teachers. Yeah. And so if you want to be remembered, if you want to have influence, that ripple effect, learn how to coach, learn how to teach, and become a great mentor. Isn't that lovely?
That's such a powerful thing to say, and also a powerful thing to be told to you, Chester. Like, wow, like thank you for cheering me on. Thank you for being there. What a way to leave a legacy, right? And now that we're moving forward, we're moving into the future. I'm really curious how you're translating all these 2 decades of experience, right? Because right now, a lot of companies are going fully remote, right? Especially it all started during the pandemic. And now there's tons of debate going around whether people are more productive at home, are they more productive at the office. before I get to the real gist of the question, I'd love to have your take on that. What is your take on that? Do you think people are more productive working from home, or do you need to have an office, a physical office, to build a culture?
Well, this is the question of our day, right? Is that
Yes,
do,
precisely.
do do I have to go into the office? And it all depends on what your commute is, right? Like I live in New
Yes.
Jersey, just outside New York, and the commute into the city is not that great.
Yeah.
Unless you've got your own helicopter, in which case it's a breeze, right? And so you're going to do everything you can to avoid that killer commute, that soul crushing New Jersey transit
Absolutely.
experience.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of it just depends on your job. For example, I've got a son who works in the financial industry and very much
Okay.
data driven. Is he more productive being at home and having that extra time that he would normally be on the train? Yeah, he is. And so is the whole team. So I think in certain jobs, there's no question productivity can go up. Right.
Yes.
Then there are other jobs. Look, if you're in retail, you have to show up. You can't,
Absolutely. No way.
you can't do that remotely. So a lot of it depends on the job. Now, where you've got options, right, where you can say, and you're seeing companies are saying, look, we were fully remote during the pandemic. We had to keep you safe. Perfect sense. Now they're saying, look, I want
Okay.
you to come into the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Some have
Okay.
said, look, it's 5 days a week. And if that's not for you,
Yeah.
that's fine. We'll wish you well.
Right.
Go find
Right.
a job somewhere else. Here's the dilemma. I honestly believe that at our core, we are social animals. We are social
Yes.
animals. We like
Yeah.
to be with other humans. And so I think that you've got to continue to find that balance
Hmm.
because there is something very different about being in the same room, breathing the same air, ideating
Right.
around a whiteboard. And I know there are
Right.
tools online. We've got virtual whiteboards, but
Hmm.
yes, and they can work well. I
For
still
sure.
think at our core we are social animals, and you've got to create those moments. And here's why, in my opinion, the
Okay.
way that you recruit and you bring bright people into your company, into your team, whatever it may be, is retention. How do you retain people? I think it's a lot harder to retain and get that devotion and that emotional connection when people are fully remote. It's just harder,
Right.
in my opinion. Now, look, people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. My opinion is that human contact makes sense. We break bread together. I think eating together is a kind of a sacred moment. I really do. We feed each other. We cook for each other. We're
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
There's something to be
Yes.
said for just hanging out after
Yes.
work and going to the bar and throwing darts and having a couple of beers, whatever it
Yes.
is you do. So yes and yes. Are you more productive remotely? Yeah, depending on your job, you can be very. If you're wanting to build a really strong culture, you've got to find ways to get together. I will tell you that, Adrian Gostick, my co-author, and I, we speak at conferences in person and
Okay.
virtual.
Uh-huh.
In 2022 and 2023,
Right.
our in-person business exploded. People couldn't
Wow.
wait to get back together.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
so joyful. And
Wow.
particularly companies that had international presence, but they fly people in from London, they fly people in from
Right.
Singapore. And it was noisy, it was joyful,
Right.
it was so affirming, right? Because we'd been
Right.
apart for so long. So
Exactly.
I'm a big fan. By the way, I know your listeners are probably big readers. One of my favorite books is called The Good Life by Robert
Hmm.
Waldinger. And
Uh-huh.
he talks about what are the elements of a long, happy, and healthy life. An 80-year study done at the Harvard University, right, or Harvard College, as they say.
Right.
And
Right.
the number one element of a long, happy, and healthy life, and there's lots of data to back it up, right? Literally
Right.
hundreds of thousands of data points, is deep and meaningful relationships. So think about that. How do you develop a deep and meaningful relationship? Uh, can you do that over video chat? Maybe. I'll tell you
Maybe.
what, though, there's nothing better than having a meal with somebody. Going to a hockey game. I'm Canadian, so going to a hockey game is a very spiritual experience for me, Joshua. Um, you see what I'm saying? So a long
Absolutely.
answer to a detailed question. I think for you as a leader, you've got to figure out how do I get the best of both worlds? How do I allow the flexibility to my employees that say, look, I need to take my kids to school. I need to be here when they
Right.
come back. And
Right.
remote is the best way to do that. And at the same time, finding ways that we can breathe the same air and create those, those emotional connections.
That's a really fantastic way to put it, Chester. I am a big proponent of having meals together, right? If you are all in the same household and you're not eating meals together, what is the point? That is, to me, is really quite sacred. And that if you have an opportunity to eat with someone, or to eat whoever you're with, whoever you're hanging out with, it is very important. It's those small moments, and I totally agree that maybe like workplace breaks, like hanging out after works, that does really form a strong culture. And I love how you said that, actually you already answered the question I was going to ask after that. I was going to ask, like, how are leaders going to navigate this shift, this hybrid type of thing, because people are going remote, people are going hybrid, or people don't want to go to work or physically report physically, and you answered that really well.
Yeah.
I want to
Let
touch
me
up a
let me
little.
jump in.
Go
Let me
ahead, go ahead,
jump in really quick because
go
I
ahead,
love this concept of we eat together. We found the most fascinating case study on
please.
firefighters and
Okay.
firehouses.
Right,
So
right.
they wanted to say, okay, why were certain fire stations more responsive, quicker to the fire and stayed safer? One of the key elements was when they went into these firehouses, did they eat together? Isn't that
Oh,
interesting? Now you talk
oh,
about, and you've got all these, firehouse subs and the firehouse chili, and
right.
firefighters are known for their food. They said when we came into a firehouse and we saw that they ate together, their
Mm-hmm.
response times were faster, their safety
Wow.
records were better, and so on.
Uh-huh.
They said, in fact, one of the key elements we knew when there was problems with the culture is when they ate
Right,
separately. There was a
right,
disconnect. So I
right.
am all in on create ways to just grab a bite and share a meal. Yep. Good for you.
Would you suggest to, like, if everyone works remotely most of the week, you know, set aside one day to just eat, but not report for work, right? That seems like an interesting
Yeah,
concept.
yeah.
When you,
Well, and you've seen companies do that with their remote workers, right? They'll give them an Uber Eats gift card, and they'll say,
right,
"Look, today we're just going to have a lunch Zoom, or order a salad, order a burger, whatever it is your preference, and let's just hang out and eat." And again, you can do it remotely, and I think it's a great idea. Is
yes,
it as impactful as if we're all sitting around the table? I don't think so. And yet, see, that was a leader
yes,
that figured out, look, let's at least try to simulate that.
right,
And it was really fun. They'd go
right,
around and say, "So what did you order and why?"
right,
Right? And they talk
right,
about the meal that they ordered and
right.
so on. So you can do it. Like I say though, you really do need to find ways to try to meet together. There's magic in that, I believe.
That's true, and I totally agree with that, Chester. I love that Uber Eats concept. I probably share that with some of my friends now. But let me touch up on this a little bit, and I do have a question towards the end that I want to ask. But before we move to that one, we're very aware that Gen Z is inheriting, or rather entering, the workforce right now, right? And they're looking for more meaningful jobs. They want flexibility, they want connection, and you've shown us like a different, like hybrid solutions to these kinds of, like, how do you engage them? How do you make them feel like they're meaningful job? Um, when it comes to traditional hierarchical organizational structure that you've been used to, actually meeting, how do you see these traditional organizations meeting the expectations of Gen Z workers? Does it need to adapt? And what do you think? What would you suggest organizations to make it better to attract Gen Z and retain Gen Z talent? So this is very specific, right? This is particularly for Gen Z because this is the future of the workforce. What do you think about that, Chester?
Yeah, I mean, in the next few years, 27% of the workforce in North America is going to be Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, you need to figure that out, you know.
Yeah.
And in one of our latest books that Adrian and I published, we called it Anxiety at Work, right? 8
Right.
strategies to deal with anxiety. Gen Z is by far the most anxious generation. When you
Mm-hmm.
go up through Gen Z and millennials and Gen X and baby boomers and so on, and we got all these, labels. I think one of the things as leaders that you've got to be careful is to not pigeonhole people just simply because of their
Right.
age and their generation.
Right.
There are lots of Gen Zs that are going to act like baby boomers, and there are lots of Gen Zs that are going to act like millennials and so on. I
That's
think
true.
what you need to do as a leader is be very individual, craft your roles, craft who it is to the individual. And what I mean by that is we had a wonderful case study of the International Space Station. The most productive team that went up, 3 Russian cosmonauts, 2 American astronauts, and a Canadian commander, a guy named Chris Hadfield. Amazing guy, by the way. And they wanted to know, why was this group the most productive? Well, they had generational gaps, 31 years between the youngest astronaut and the oldest cosmonaut, right? And one of the things that Hatfield did is he said, we knew each other's stories. So I think that's really a key, right? So I have somebody, they're Gen Z. My assumption is they're going to be this, and this.
Right.
Well, maybe not. I'll tell you, it was really interesting. I was working with this young guy, really smart, loved him, and Asian descent. And I said, hey, tell me a little bit about your family. Like, where did you come from? He says, well, my parents are from Vietnam. I said, oh, that's great. How did they get from Vietnam? He said, right at the end of the Vietnam War. Now, they had him when they were much older, right? He says, right at the end of the Vietnam War, when it all started to collapse, my parents literally jumped in a rowboat and rowed out into the sea. And American sailors rescued them. They were, at the time, they were called boat people, right? They were literally plucked out of the ocean by American sailors, and then made their way to the United States and became very entrepreneurial. They opened a bunch of nail salons and so on. And all their kids went to college and are all doing well. Well, knowing that part of his story changed everything for me about him. And I said, well, so tell me what some of the values your parents instilled in you. He said, education is everything. You always work hard. You never make excuses. And family is everything. Well, knowing that, so that's where he came from. And then I said, well, so how did you get here? Like, why did you choose, or how did we end up choosing you? And went through the hiring process. And then you say, so what is it you want to accomplish while you're here? And have them tell you their dreams and aspirations. And then what I love is the developmental question is, and where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now?
Yes.
Well, if I'm a leader, regardless of what generation you are, but I think particularly for Gen Z, if I know where you came from, how you got here, what you want to accomplish while you're here, and where you want to go, now I can craft a way forward for you. I can coach you. I can mentor you. I can help you develop and grow, not just as a worker and a leader, as a person. So I think the answer to a lot of questions, regardless of the generational definition, is know their stories. Now, the second part, he said, I think the reason we were so productive was we had one unwritten rule in the space station, and that was every astronaut had to perform a random act of kindness for every other astronaut every day. Small little acts of service. And he said, because of that, we never had a heated argument. Nobody lost their temper. It was the little things that made a difference. I'm serving you. You're on my team. I'm cheering for you. I care for you. And it made all the difference. I know we're at time here, and I know we got to wrap things up, but I hope your takeaways is know your people's stories, serve them, and recognize them in little ways often, because that message and those relationships carry you forward through hard times, through difficult assignments, through crushing projects, because I know I've got somebody that's cheering for me, that cares about me, and we can do this.
Wow, those are really just genuine ways. Regardless if it's a workforce, right? In every facet of life, it's such a genuine way to make connection, to give back. And of course, it makes sense that knowing other people's stories makes them feel more meaningful when it comes to in any scenario, right? I love that you shared that, Chester. That's probably my favorite part of this interview now. But I do have one last question for you. And this is more, like for you to give your an opportunity for you to share what else it is that you want to tell the audience. But I'd like to start it off by asking, what is your go-to way, the number one thing that, if you were to tell me one thing to do every day to be grateful, a gratitude practice, what would it be, Chester? Tell me, and I do it every day.
Well, your timing couldn't be any better, Joshua. You know, I'm a big journaler. I've got many journals in my
Oh
closet that I'm
wow.
sure no one
Okay.
will ever read. I started a few years ago a gratitude practice in keeping a gratitude journal. How do
Wow.
you start your day? How do you end your day? And then it was so funny. I said to Adrian, I said, by the way, we're the apostles of appreciation, the gurus of gratitude, the Dalai Lamas of workplace trauma. I can't believe that we don't have our own gratitude journal. So we
Oh.
did. We published it. And now I know this is just audio. I'm holding it up. It is called The
Oh.
Gratitude Habit, a 90-day journal for a more grateful
Uh-huh.
life. I'm a big
Oh.
fan of tokens and rituals. So the token is the book, right? The ritual is,
Right.
how do you start your day? 3 things you're grateful
Mm-hmm.
for the day. 3 things that you're hopeful that will happen during the day. A
Okay.
little positive thought, right? And
Okay.
then you launch into your day. And then at the end of the day, what are 3
Okay.
things you were grateful for? What was one thing you learned today?
Okay.
And then probably my favorite part is at the end is, write down the names of all the people that you're grateful for that came into your
Oh
life
my
today.
goodness.
Yeah, it's a wonderful reflection. It's
Oh,
going to be on Amazon in March. If you go to thecultureworks.com,
all
you can
right.
buy them direct for us. Actually, at a nice little discount. So, really
All
encourage.
right.
I'm a big fan of tokens and rituals. Now, to wrap
Okay.
up, all
Go
these
ahead.
principles that we teach about a great culture and a great leader,
Mm-hmm.
we always say, by the way, this will work in the workplace. We have all these data points. We have all these case studies. If you do it, it'll work. Don't leave it at work. Take it home. So this gratitude journal is a
Wow.
take it home principle, right?
Wow.
When was the
Okay.
last time you did a little micro act of kindness for your partner, for your girlfriend, boyfriend, neighbor, and so on? And I will tell you, my wife and I have a wonderful little ritual that we do every
Uh-huh.
night.
Uh-huh.
And we've been happily married for 40 years. So Joshua set a goal, okay, is that at the end of the day, we say, what are your 3? What are your 3? Tell me 3 things you're grateful for today. It's just such a lovely way to end the day. And what does it always end up? There's more than 3. And as we wrap up the day, you know, of course, who are we most grateful for? I'm most grateful for her. And
Mm-hmm.
within a catalog, she's most grateful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end the day with a very nice, you know, recap of the good parts of your day. And what are you telling each
Wow.
other? How much you love each other.
Wow.
It's just so lovely.
It's very lovely. I That was a word that had been going through my mind the entire time you were saying that. What a loving way to live life.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for Chester, because I am gonna look watch out for that book, and for all the audiences as well, all the listeners out there. Make sure you grab yourselves a copy. You guys heard it here first. You guys heard it. You know, you guys heard everything that Chester has put out there, and I'm really looking forward to that book. Catch it at thecultureworks.com. Is there anywhere else that we can catch you, Chester? Do you have
Yeah.
a
Follow us.
LinkedIn, socials?
We do. We placed a big bet on LinkedIn years ago. We have over
Okay.
600,000 followers, which is kind of nice.
Wow.
And every other week, we publish the Gratitude Journal. And we're so gratified. We have over 300,000 subscribers.
Oh,
Every other week, we publish a great little interview we did, or some thinking that we had, or a little. And we've had, you know, well over, I think we're hitting 200 journals so far. And to me, it's very satisfying that we have over 300,000 subscribers, because what does that tell you? People are looking for that positivity in their life. They're looking for that bit of encouragement, you know, a couple of takeaways. We also have a wonderful podcast called
all right.
Anxiety at Work.
All
And
right.
again, we bring in lots of business leaders. We bring in lots of experts. How do you deal with anxiety? And what I'll tell you is so interesting, Joshua. Remember that common thread
Please.
of gratitude? 8
Yes, please.
strategies
Uh-huh.
on how to deal with your anxiety at work. The eighth
Okay.
strategy is develop a gratitude ritual. You can't hold 2 emotions at the same time. You can't be anxious and be grateful at the same time. So if you have a choice between anxiety and grateful, Joshua, pick grateful. It's way more satisfying. It's way more happy.
It's way more joyful. And what a way to wrap up what a quote, what a line to wrap up this episode. Pick gratitude. We should have that as a hashtag, right? Hashtag pick gratitude. Chester, thank you so much for your time here. Regardless of the show or the audience, I would personally love to say that that was such a meaningful knowledge that I received from you, and I'd love to stay connected. And I watch out for that journal. That's for sure. You can guarantee that, guys.
Thank you.
You heard it here. You heard it here first. Go get your copies, and thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Chester.
It was a delight, Joshua. You can call me anytime. Cheers.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.